All right, it is 7:30, so I will open the meeting. Welcome to the River Edge Municipal Land Use Board. It's Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. It's 7:30 p.m. And I just want to remind everybody we are being recorded electronically for the purpose of keeping minutes for this meeting. The meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge is being held remotely and recorded via Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic and is in compliance with the provisions of Executive Orders 103 and 104 of the Open Public Meetings Act and NJAC 5-39-1.1 to 1.7. Notice of this meeting was published in the Ridgewood News and the Bergen Record on December 20th, 2019, and posted on the front doors of Borough Hall and posted on the homepage of the Borough website. The board's notice includes the dial-up login information necessary for members of the public to participate in and access the meeting remotely. A copy of this agenda for the meeting and it has been made available on the borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and included in dial-up login information. During the public comment portion of this meeting, if you would like to make a public comment, please press the raised hand button on the Zoom or dial *9 on your cell phone and raise your hand. The board will address you by name or by your last 4 digits of your telephone number and state your comment. The board will unmute your microphone. You must raise your hand and give your name and address prior to making a public comment. You may also mute and unmute yourself by pressing the microphone icon on the Zoom or dialing *6 on your telephone. Members of the public were also permitted to submit within written comments prior to the meeting via email, which would be read during the public portion of the meeting. Ms. Stinley, roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Present.
Mr. Arkelian,
Here.
Ms. Boland. Here. Mr. Bartoloni. Oh, I think he's on mute.
Here.
He's here. Mr. Merman,
Here.
Mr. Grasso,
Here.
Mr. Cray,
Here.
Mr. Caslin,
Here.
Councilman Kinigo,
Here.
Mr. Gibbons.
Here.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, so we'll obviously dispense with the flag salute for obvious reasons, and we'll go right into the completeness review. Visor Vic Jacopi, 830 Park Avenue, block 213, lot 1301. He's coming in for proposed in-ground pool and paved walkway. Good evening, sir. How are you tonight? You can unmute.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. We are well. Thank you for everybody for
Hello.
accepting us at this meeting.
Okay, so right now we're just going to go into the completeness review to make sure that everything you submitted was properly done. We'll go to Mr. Behrens, which is our borough planner. Tom?
Good evening. You might hear some music in the background. That's not from my house, but there's a socially distanced birthday situation going on outside for an 18-year-old. So just bear with me for a moment. But anyway, I reviewed the application materials and they're sufficient to move forward this evening and determine it complete.
And Ms. Stinley, our borough attorney, our board attorney.
Prior to the meeting, I reviewed the applicant's documents and proofs, and everything meets the requirements of the municipal land use law, so the board has jurisdiction to proceed.
Here's that everything is in place. Can I get a motion to accept this as complete?
So moved. Gibbons?
Do I have a second?
Merman, second.
And roll call, please. Roll call.
Roll call.
Ms.
Oh,
Stinley.
sorry. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Ms. Chairman Arkelian,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Bartoloni,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Grasso. Oh, I think he's on mute.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Councilman Kenigo,
Yes.
and Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay, the application is complete.
Excellent. Okay, so now that we are complete, we will go directly into new business. And again, this is Advisor Vic Jacoupy. Am I saying that correct?
Yes.
Okay, you could keep your mic on because we're going to be going back and forth.
Okay, no problem.
So it's 830 Park Avenue, block 213, lot 1301.
So
Any-
just before you provide any testimony, could you just raise your right hand? Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And could you please state your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the record?
Visar Vic Jacoupy, Jakupi, 830 Park Avenue, River Edge, New Jersey.
Okay, thank you. Will you both be giving testimony or just you?
Pretty much both of us.
Okay, so could you all, I'm sorry, could you also,
Yes,
do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
And then state your name for the record.
Gentana Jakupi, Jakupi, 830 Park Ave, River Edge, New Jersey.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Welcome, folks. So at this point, why don't you give us a little history of the property? Give us a little idea of what you're trying to accomplish this evening, and we can move forward from there.
All right, well, we moved into the property in 2015 as of June 1st. We came from Edgewater to River Edge, from a small 2-bedroom apartment into the house that we live now. We have 3 beautiful kids. We 2 of them were born in this house, and our older one, Adrian, actually was born in Edgewater. When we initially moved, we thought the house is going to be too big for us, but we liked the house and we ended up purchasing. But as the kids are growing up, we're realizing that obviously, especially this summer has been a really tough times for us, for the kids. They want to go to the beach, they want to go to the pool. With the pandemic, it was really, really a hard time. Our challenges were with a younger one who is an autistic child and needs some, likes swimming, likes water, he wants to be in the water. We wanted to put a above ground pool. And the one, you guys probably are aware of our property, and on the back we have a 14-foot retaining wall. Whoever I consulted with, above ground pool was no, because we're adding too much weight to the existing retaining wall. So on the engineering perspective, I was quite a bit concerned, and I didn't want to do something that could, God forbid, cause the wall to collapse, or if anything happens, we have a train track right behind us, which could interrupt a major train artery. So then I went back to the original engineering firm that initially did the land survey when the house was built, Boston Associates, and they are the one that did the plan. And we decided that for the security, for the safeness of the project, the best option would be to do an in-ground gunite pool, which has rebars. Obviously, you guys know about the gunite. It's more stronger, more secure, and would not have an impact against the retaining wall. And then we realized that our property is not big enough for the pool, and we had to go through the steps of the variance. And I thank Mr. Alter, who has been, and Mr. Barons, who's been helping me from this process, getting this process started, getting the paperwork ready, all the application in, that led to our meeting tonight.
Yes, and I think the only thing that I want to add is that, as it may have been for a lot of people around the world, really, it was a very difficult year, especially with us, as he mentioned, with our child having some behavior, issues now. We used to be at the town pool, and it's become a little harder for us to be there now with him, not doing so well. So, it would help us greatly if we had, the pool in our backyard where he wouldn't, be all over the place at the town pool, which he is. Well, he was last year. So this year, a lot of things have changed with him. So he needs a lot more attention and not to be around a lot of people. So it would help a lot.
So everybody should have received a set of plans. Did anybody not receive a set of plans in the mail? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to our borough planner, Mr. Behrens, and give us an update and let us know where the application stands.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's one variance being requested, and that is the improved lot coverage variance. As it stands today, the lot has an improved lot coverage of 38%, which is about 3% over the maximum permitted 35%. And the proposed pool.
Tom, I'm just going to stop you for a second. It's very difficult to hear you with the background noise.
I can
You have a microphone or anything? Or a headset?
possibly relocate. Bear with me. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I understand.
Uh,
I would, especially being it's being recorded. I want people to be able to hear you say.
Let me try to relocate. Just bear with me while you get a tour of my house. Hopefully not too much clutter.
We needed a tour of your house anyway.
Well, it's not very exciting. Here, we're in the, if I can figure out the light, the mermaid room. So my daughter's,
It sounds like it's better.
apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
So the situation again is that there's a variance request for the improved lot coverage. As it stands today, again, the maximum permitted is 35%. The site today has 38%, and they'll be going to a little over 48%. And what that translates to number-wise is the pool and patio will add another 825 square feet, rising the total above the maximum permitted to 1,112 square feet. And so there are two ways that a board, as the board knows, but for the applicant's information, that a board can approve what's called a C bulk variance. And one is there's a C1 physical features test where an applicant can demonstrate that there's some form of hardship that they can't comply with the town's zoning ordinance requirements. I think Mr. Jacoby kind of touched on one before. That's up to the board to evaluate. And that has to do with whether or not there's some feature of the site, whether it's topography, the shape, or the lot size, that's preventing them essentially from submitting a conforming application, or in this case, an above ground pool versus an in-ground pool. And conversely, there is a second approach or second test called the C2 public benefits test, where the applicant has to demonstrate that there is the public benefits of the application outweigh the any detriments of the application. And further, they have to address what's called the negative criteria and show that there will be no substantial detriments to the public good and no substantial impairment to the town's master plan and zoning ordinance. So that's, the applicant's going to have to provide some testimony with respect to either or both of those tests in providing a justification for their application.
Tom, is there any, do you have any idea how the applicant's property went from 35, which is allowable, to 38?
I do not know the history of it. I know it is a newer build. There's, as you can see on the plan, there is a decent sized patio in the back. I do not know the history of that. I was not able to look that up. So I'll ask the applicant. You've been there since 2015. Do you know anything about the patio, or if there was permitting or a variance granted for what you have?
When we did the patio, patio was done last year. And we went over it a little bit without my knowledge, the contractor. The patio was supposed to be for about 3 feet to the left, if you look at the plan. And what they did is cosmetically, without knowing, they went that corner there, which is easily, reconciled. We could remove that 3% that we are over without a problem.
Okay.
And that's just the contractor that did that. Unfortunately, went a little bit over. And that, with this, we will rectify this, and, whatever the board approves, we'll make sure that we are within the limits of the approval.
All right, so I guess I'll ask, so that translates to about 240 square feet, that 3%, possibly a little bit more than that Mr. Jacoby mentioned. So, Mr. Jacoby, again, if you need me to repeat the different, variance relief tests, I can, but again, can you touch on, what type of hardships your property might be facing, and or, again, the public benefits of this application? And an example of a public benefit could be a reduction in paved area, a substantial reduction in paved area, the insertion of seepage pits, or any other type of public, again, it has to be a public benefit, not to just your property.
I have consulted with Costner Associates, the engineers, and they suggested to put another seepage pit
Okay.
in the property. And what we'd like to do is do some sort of arbor-white trees around the fence perimeter as well on the back.
Okay. Can you address I understand your property probably slopes a little bit in the back.
Correct.
Can you talk about the proposed location of the pool and whether or not that there are any alternative locations, or whether or not it could be connected to the existing patio, and whether or not that might help, alleviate some of the proposed coverage that you have?
To connect it to the existing patio, if you see, our property is not perfectly squared.
Right.
So, and then we can go out because we have a geogrid to protect for existing retaining wall. However, the property is a little bit on a slant, and we'd have to do a minor regrading to make it perfectly leveled for the pool construction.
Okay, so where it stands, I think you've offered up about 3% of the coverage, so that would bring you down to about 45% over, where 35% is the maximum. Is that, I guess, is that the condition that you'd like to offer to the board at this point in time?
I would say yes.
All right, so at this point, I'll turn it over to the board then for
Thanks.
deliberation.
Thanks, Tom. Marina, did you have anything that you wanted to add before I went to the board members?
Are you also proposing to add the second seepage pit, or is that just an
We
option?
already have 2 seepage pits on the property. We're proposing to add the third one.
Okay.
All right, and just I have a quick question. What was the name of the engineering firm that you consulted with?
Costner Associates, you have the stamp on the plan.
Okay. Yep.
Stephen Costner. And they were
Okay.
supposed to be present for the meeting. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I think they are. Hold on a second.
That who?
All right.
Raymond?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold on. He's joining us as a panelist, hopefully. Yeah.
Okay, Raymond.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Yes, so Raymond, is here. Thank you.
Okay. Raymond, can you hear us? Raymond? He unmuted, but I still don't hear him. Raymond?
Raymond, you're able to talk now. If you could turn up your volume.
Raymond, we're not hearing you. Raymond, why don't you try dialing in on your phone?
I'll put the call in information. I guess.
Raymond, you could also try typing something in the chat box, since we can't hear you.
I don't want to start asking questions until he's sworn in and he gets an opportunity to speak as well.
I think he's trying to dial in right now.
Yeah, that's what it says there.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Raymond? All right, so you have no audio, but we can see you speak. Do you have the microphone on your laptop or whatever you're on? Raymond, why don't you call in on your phone, leave the computer on the way it is, and then we'll bring your audio through your phone. Marina, can you put up the call in again, please? That's okay. You're the only application tonight, so want to get our money's worth.
You might, Michelle, you might have to let him in once he dials in as well.
Okay.
With you now?
Just make sure to mute your computer.
I'm doing that now. How's this?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that. I apologize, board. Thank you for the patience. I had several different equipment options, so I had to wait for the third one, but I'm with you now. I apologize.
Not a problem at all. Miss Finley?
So could you just please provide your name, some background on your education and experience, if you've ever testified before land use boards in New Jersey?
Certainly. Name is Raymond Moraski, Moraski. I'm a project manager with Kessner Associates, 61 Hudson Street in Hackensack, New Jersey. I've been with them about the past 15 years and in practice engineering and land surveying for over 30 years. I have a bachelor's degree in economics with a minor in mathematics from the University of Pennsylvania, and additional coursework in civil engineering and land surveying from New Jersey Institute of Technology. And I've testified in front of several boards in Bergen County and Passaic County, including City of Hackensack, Township of Teaneck, the Borough of Maywood, as a few examples.
Okay, and could you please raise your right hand? And do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And then could you just state your name and spell your last name and address for the board, please?
Certainly. Again, Raymond Moraski, Moraski. Company is Kessner Associates at 61 Hudson Street in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Okay, and does the board accept Mr. Moraski's
I believe he's acceptable.
qualifications?
I believe he's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so just to catch you, I'm gonna call you Raymond because I don't see your last name on here. So
Certainly.
just to catch you up, Mr. Chakoupi and Ms. Chakoupi gave us a brief description of what they're trying to accomplish tonight. We talked about the land usage already and the floor area ratio and so forth. We had a little bit of testimony from our planner. So I'm going to let you just take over from there.
Certainly, I've actually been with you since the beginning in the audience. I thought I was connected, so I've been privy to all of the information that's
Okay.
been shared. So again, we comply with everything except for the maximum lot coverage, which is the 35% that's allowed. And as indicated right now, they have a pre-existing condition at about 38.5%, and the application would be just around 40% for the with the pool. I'm sorry, 48.5% with the pool and the walkway around it. The pool has been placed so that it meets the required setbacks for a pool. And as the applicant indicated, he has a retaining wall that runs along the rear yard between his property and the railroad that's back there. My firm, and actually I personally was involved in that minor subdivision and the construction and inspection of that retaining wall, and reports were provided to the borough engineer back in, I believe it was around 2013 and 2014 time period. So we're aware of the geogrid that's installed and the construction of the wall that's standing there presently. So taking into account that, again, the pool was placed in such that we anticipate that it would interfere with the geogrid that's been installed and respects the required setbacks. We also are aware, and it's shown on the plan, there are currently 2 underground existing seepage pits, so we were trying to not disturb those as well and place the pool where it is. I did hear a reference to combining the pool walkway with the existing patio. However, if you look at the plans on the one side, there's a spa that currently exists there with a minimal walkway area and combination. It was felt that that was needed and the walkway around the pool area were needed. So it could be contiguous with that. However, that wouldn't change the square footage that we're proposing. So it really wouldn't change the application for the percentage of coverage that's required. And as the applicant also indicated, we've already had a discussion that we would be looking at this increase in impervious coverage, and any stormwater runoff that it would produce would be handled by an additional chamber, stormwater chamber or pit, as the calculations would reflect. And finally, I also believe, which the applicant hasn't mentioned yet, that we're willing to do some landscaping in the backyard area that would enhance the area and the view for the neighbors. So trying to be brief, catching up the fact that I'm joining you late. I think I covered most of that, but open to any questions that the board may have.
Okay. All right. As usual, I'll go through the names on the board and ask for your input or questions. And I'll start with Mr. Caslin. Chris?
Yeah, I guess my only concern was just the fact that, is there any, from an engineering perspective, because the existing seepage pit, the one to the south, and the proximity of where it would be to the proposed pool, from an engineering perspective, is there any issue with the seepage pit overflowing? Does that somehow affect the construct of the pool going forward from a just a maintenance standpoint, and just does it create any situations where it could interfere with the pool or create an unsafe situation if that seepage pit were to overflow for some reason?
Well, the way that it's designed is currently underground and buried, so it just infiltrates. There is real no overflow mechanism other than at the downspouts for the dwelling. So, and we would anticipate during the construction and excavation for the pool, that would be evaluated during that process. And if anything was uncovered, we would obviously address that accordingly.
Okay. And could you just, I think we were trying, there was a question before, what's the exact topography of the property at the back there? What's the slope?
There is a slight slope from the patio area, several feet down towards the top of the wall. And again, then that significant wall that's been constructed according to what was approved. We would anticipate that there would be some excavation done for the pool itself and the patio, and that would help alleviate some of the surcharge on that retaining wall that way.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, next up would be Mr. Cray. Mike?
Unmute there. Okay. Okay, so first question, I know the application shows the existing condition is 38% as far as the ground coverage goes. But that actually was not an approved variance. So prior to the patio I mean, if the patio was put in and you were in conformance with code, you'd be at 35%, right?
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, so in effect, you're really asking for this variance to change from 35% to 48 and change, not 38 to 48. So the difference between what should be existing and what you're asking for is actually larger than what it appears to be on the application, correct?
The difference from what's allowed, correct,
Mhm.
but that number would be less, obviously, if there was less existing as well, so.
Well, what I'm saying is, but when the patio was put in, it was non-conforming. That was not an approved variance.
I don't have history on that, but based on the numbers, it would appear that way from the testimony of
Okay,
the
well,
owner.
yeah, that's what the owners had said. I got a question about the concrete walk around well, two questions actually. The pool size and then the concrete walk around the pool. I guess the first question around the concrete walk around the pool, on the south side of it, it's obviously a wider path than on the other three sides. Is there something that drives that out of necessity?
I would let the owners speak, but I believe they wanted a sitting area to be close by their young children while they're in the pool and have an area that they could be at hand. But I don't know if they want to clarify anything further in regard to that.
I think Raymond explained. Pretty much that's the reason.
Okay, would that be addressed if you moved the pool closer to the paver walkway and you could be sitting on the paver patio and you'd be adjacent to the pool? Wouldn't that do the same thing?
We could look at that. However, that might complicate or interfere with the seepage pit location. But I can speak to the owners regarding that.
Okay, and I guess the second question, you have a little bit of overlap there on the seepage pit with the 16 by 32 pool. Would you consider looking at a smaller size on the pool?
Well, the overlap currently is actually somewhat deceiving in that shows the outside of the stone area, the circles as well. And so again, those pits are buried in underground, so it would actually be sitting under the walk and a couple of feet distance from the pool, which again would be reevaluated during construction. So it's not necessarily a reason to, but we can look at that if that's what the board.
Right. Well, I guess
asking.
what I'm asking is, I mean, you're asking for a pretty large variance to put this pool in and you're already on a lot that's over the minimum. So kind of, a lot of the times the hardship we're looking at is somebody's on an undersized lot or an irregularly shaped lot. This is larger than a minimum size lot. It's pretty regularly shaped, and we're looking at almost 50% ground coverage being requested. And I'm just looking for ways to, maybe make that a little more palatable. And, reducing the size of that walkway and reducing the size of the pool would contribute to that effort. And I guess I'm asking whether that would be considered.
I believe the owners are willing to consider that, but again, if they have any input that they want to provide.
Have any input at this time.
Mr. Jacoby, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
We looked at all the possible options here. If we go with anything smaller, the pool would be, very small. The 16 by 32 is what we've been talking to everybody, all the pool companies, that would be in adequate size. Anything smaller than that, the next I think would be like 12 by 24. That would be, you know, too small, going the expense that we're looking at wouldn't even, you know, make sense. It wouldn't even be worth it.
So you wouldn't consider something smaller.
Fortunately,
And I'm just going to jump in, hopefully try to help move things along and not muddle them. So again, where we're at, Mr. Jacoby, you offered reducing the coverage by about 3%. So that puts you at about 10% over.
correct. Can I ask you a question? Just you mentioned like in square footage, we are 240 square footage over, 240 square foot over. Was that the right calculation?
No, that would be the reduction of 3% that you were talking about, approximately. You're actually right now over by over 1,000 square feet. So let me just, if you can bear with my madness for a moment here, we'll try to maybe come to a resolution. So again, you've offered a discount in the impervious coverage of 3%. That's a reduction of about 240 square feet. The pool area itself is 512 square feet, and that would be taken out of the overage now of 825 square feet. So the resulting impervious coverage from the pavers would be 313 square feet. And that translates roughly into about 4 or 5%.
Right.
So,
And then the walk is also 288 square feet.
right.
Correct?
And so I think the bottom line is, Mr. Jacoby, is that, you know, the board's fair and often willing to work with applicants, but you got to do a lot better with the paving and just, you know, take a look where you might be able to compromise for something that works for you and that can work for the town. I think that's where we're at.
And if I can just chime in for everybody's perspective, 1% for this property, we're talking about roughly 82 square feet. So any reduction of that in any manner then reduces that percentage by that 1%.
Thank you.
You done, Tom?
Yeah, I'm good.
Michael, you done?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next up would be Mr. Grasso. Lou?
This question would be directed towards Raymond. I'm looking on the plan and I see the pool is approximately or exactly 10.5 feet from the wall. That is correct?
That's currently what it's proposed, correct?
Proposed. Okay.
Or from the property line.
Okay. My only concern is, I don't know if there's any type of calculation or any type of specification to the wall as far as how much, is there any effect, like the weight of all this water 10 feet from the wall? Is there any effect on the integrity of that wall with this amount of weight? I don't know how many gallons this pool takes and whatever multiplied by how much a gallon of water weighs, but is that amount of weight any type of problem that you foresee on the integrity of the wall?
Well, in general, that would be actually lighter than the soil for that volume of area. But also, as previously mentioned, we'd anticipate there'd be some excavation for this pool and possibly a lower elevation when it's installed than it currently is. So that would further reduce any surcharge, any load on that wall. However, given the fact that we have all the documentation from how that wall was constructed, that would all be evaluated during that process.
Okay, that was my only concern.
Thanks, Lou.
You're welcome.
Next, Mr. Bartoloni. Alphonse?
Yes, thank you. Just I guess a couple questions, and I think the engineer answered one of them with respect to the weight issue. But I guess for the homeowners, what size above ground pool were you considering?
Similar.
A 16 by 32 foot rectangular pool?
Correct.
Okay.
And the above ground pools, they come in certain dimensions that they don't make them custom. And one of them that was available that we found early this spring was 16 by 32 and kind of, you know, but then when we looked at all the other issues that came with it, wasn't a good idea to the retaining wall. So that's what we decided to go through this process for an in-ground pool.
And I guess it's not so much a question as simply a statement, but I think I would agree with some of the prior suggestions in terms of trying to get this pool moved closer to the patio, which I think already provides a seating area upon which anybody in the pool could be observed, as opposed to this sort of concrete area that's near the fence line, and try and reduce that to a similar walk around that's on the other three sides of the pool. And, again, just move it closer. Even at that point, then you might be able to remove the other concrete walkway and butt it up against the pavers and just save some, square footage that way. That might be, my recommendation.
Well, I would add two things regarding that. One, we did allow a little separation between the pool and the existing paver patio to allow for any change in grade that might result with the installation and excavation for the pool. But again, we could look during the final design on incorporating that. But also, I just want everybody to be aware, and especially the homeowner, it's a little difficult since we're not in the same room, but by the 3% we're talking about, that's going to be roughly, I believe, about 20 feet or a good majority of the patio that's towards the northerly side of the property and the stairs that they would be losing as it is to accommodate that 3% reduction that was originally discussed. So they are reducing the seating area then that becomes available to them with that patio if they're going to comply with that 3% initial reduction.
I think there's always grass to sit on.
Just making sure we're all aware of what we're talking about.
Sure.
Is that it, Alphonse?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Boland. Eileen?
Yes, hi. I agree with Mr. Burns, how he summed up, how he feels that the board feels is that it could do a better job in reducing the patio, keeping the pool the same size. Also, I don't think it's too much of a hardship to move that seepage pit. You could reuse it. You're already digging up the whole backyard. I think that could be relocated without too much of an expense.
Raymond?
Well, again, the proposed design was based on complying with the setback requirements for the pool and looking at possibly eliminating a conflict with the seepage pits that can be evaluated. But again, the walkway that they have and the fact that they're losing 250 square feet of the patio now becomes more crucial around the pool itself. Again, we can look at how we can, but 1% is we'd need to come up with another 80 square feet. And now that we don't have that patio area, I suppose if they're willing to lose the area to the south or a portion of that and make that comparable to the surrounding the rest of that.
So if we make 2 feet around the concrete walkway, 2 feet around and lose 4 feet there, what would the reduction be?
You're about a 1% reduction, maybe 1.5%.
Okay. I mean, we could consider that.
Ms. Bowen, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, next up, the Councilman Caningo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Just a few questions. Can the spa be moved?
The homeowners would have to answer that.
We have no other place putting it.
Okay. What about that area north of the proposed pool?
Well, that's our seating area. We have a table.
What does he mean on the grass?
No, it's still, if you put it on the grass, so it's
Okay.
considered in
you
previous
mean over
coverage
there.
if you put it on the other side on the grass, on the corner.
I was going to point out that it does still cover, doesn't change the coverage number, but I think what his point is trying to provide a seating area that gives you access to the pool.
Mhm.
It's
My
sacrifice.
point would be that if you move the spa, then maybe you can move the pool much closer to the patio, and then you don't have that problem created by the pool and the spa right now, where you need the extra feet to be able to walk around the pool completely. By eliminating the spa in that spot there, then you have the patio that is currently there that would provide the walking area for that portion. So you could eliminate the entire concrete walk on the, I guess, western side, the side closest to the house. Another question for you: How are you going to get the excavators back there? I'm looking at the property line. It looks pretty tight.
On the right of the house, we have 12 feet and 28, 12.28, which is sufficient enough. I think anybody that I talked to told me that they need a 10-foot space. And I think on that side, we have that space to enable to come in.
Okay, good. For Raymond, is the concrete walkway around the pool structurally necessary?
Structurally, I don't have a final design on the pool itself, but I would think not.
So we could get rid of the entire concrete walkway and still give them the pool, and we lose quite a bit of impervious covers there, right?
We've already talked about losing about, that's another total 3%. We've talked about losing 1% already. We're volunteering if we reduce the one side.
You keep bringing up the losing of the patio, but the patio should have never been that extra 3%. So even though we're kind of poo-pooing it, the 35% somehow became 38%. No application was ever made before this board. And now we're saying, well, it's there anyway, we'll lose it. You're just going back to what it should have been in the first place. So it's not like you're losing, you're correcting an error that shouldn't have been made.
I think I was misinterpreted. If you don't,
I'm going to leave it at that because we don't want to really dive into the extra 3% and how it got around.
But I want to clarify that I was just referencing to the patio to the southerly side that's proposed at the pool is what I said is we just volunteered an additional 1.5% is what I'm referring to on my last comment.
I mean, you're volunteering this because you're volunteering this because it's going from the 35%, which is allowed, to 48% now. So you're reducing it a percentage or 3%. That's still a good 10% over the allowable coverage. And I think everybody's here is trying to make it happen, but trying to get some concessions. And I'm not hearing any real concessions, but I'll let the board decide for themselves. Where's the new seepage pit going? I don't see it on the map, or maybe I'm just missing it.
I'm sorry, the new seepage pit?
Yeah.
We didn't propose that yet. This was prepared, plan was prepared for the variance hearing.
Sorry, I thought Mr. Jacoby said earlier that there's currently 2 and there's going to be a 3rd added. Did I mishear that?
Correct. We're going to add one more.
Where's the new seepage pit going?
The new seepage pit is Raymond, I think next to the existing 2 ones, correct?
We would anticipate being able to combine it. And again, depending on what the coverage number results in is what would determine the size and what needs to be installed, whether it's a pit or a stormwater chamber as such to accommodate that change in impervious. And we would anticipate that we could incorporate it with the 2 system pits that are out there currently.
So where is it going?
In the locations to the north of the pool where the other existing 2 seepage pits are.
Okay. And Tom, that would be acceptable? That works?
It sounds like a little bit more of an engineering issue. So as long as, it complied with the setbacks and with Mr. Costa, I think we could probably figure something out there. If, Councilman, if you have no further questions, I did have a question. It kind of struck me. So, Mr. Raymond, I know that it's your first. So I'm trying to compare the site plan to an aerial view of the site, and something is not jiving well for me. And it could be a mistake on my part, but essentially the back of the house to the fence area shows about a distance of 37 to 40 feet.
Can you share your screen so that we know what we're looking at?
Yeah, bear with me. Let me figure this out real quick here. All right. Bear with me while I attempt this. Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong. This is the property in question.
Correct.
Right. 830 Park. So I know the measurements in Google are not 100% precise, but you can observe the dimensions of the backyard. Granted, it doesn't show the patio. If you measure, I'll start from scratch, from the end of the house to the fence, and again, this is approximate, that's about 23 feet. Now, if you bear with me, does everyone see the site plan now?
Yes.
That distance now is about, again, the point of the house that I measured is from here to here is 40 feet. If you subtract about 3 feet, that's 37. So on the site plan, the distance is 37 feet. From the aerial image measured, it's about 23 feet or whatever I said. So something is amiss. Again, I could be interpreting it wrong, but I, again, just sort of stumbled upon that. And I think Mr. Raymond could help us out here.
Well, again, we've had several surveys done and we were out and did additional field work. The surveying crew depicting this. And again, that goes back several years now with the history that we've had on this project. I believe Google may be in this case a little deceiving because I'm looking at several overhangs that exist on the second floor and a porch roof. So I don't know from Google if that's
And that's fair. I'm not trying to question the integrity
No,
of
the
your
second
firm.
records
I'm
I
just trying
turned-
to add two and two together here.
Certainly. I'm looking at the records I have that were provided to me by the survey department, and
Right. And I
they seem
understand.
to be consistent from back in 2014 and up till now, so. But I'd be happy to review that and, clarify that, but I believe that it reflects the correct information.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I guess I'm not entirely sure how to resolve that at this point, but maybe we should continue with board questioning.
All right, so I think anything that happens tonight with this board is going to be subject to review by the borough engineer. So we can, get the borough engineer on board with what, if there's any discrepancy. And more importantly, if there's water displacement, he'll be in charge of making sure that it's done properly, Raymond. I lost your volume again.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, okay. All right, back to Councilman Caningo. I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. I'm done with the questioning. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to Ryan. Mr. Gibbons?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern, and as it seems to be of others, is, this is a lot of extra coverage, I personally, I appreciate your saying that you can give back some of the, the area around, but it's a lot of coverage. And I don't know what, a good sized pool is. But I think we're asking for a lot here. I think we need to find some ways of either reducing more of the patio that you have existing, and or looking to make the pool smaller. Because we're asking for a lot of coverage on an oversized lot. I know Councilman Canigo asked about the spa. Is that a built-in spa, or is that a spa kind of sitting on top of patio?
No, spa sitting on top of the patio.
I would personally, if this is to work, I would be looking to, if you could find some other place for that or not have that, and try to incorporate, some of the coverage that you already have into what you're proposed. Because it's a lot with the patio and the pool in my eyes.
Mr. Burns, or I'm not sure whether it's the engineering who would address this. Each borough is a little different on how they handle permeable pavers.
The permeable pavers count as improved. So technically the term in River Edge is improved lot coverage, and you don't get a discount for permeable pavers.
Just want to confirm that. That was my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, we're asking to essentially go 13% over what's allowed.
So
and
what is
that's,
the acceptable percentage that everybody would be comfortable with?
Let's, you know what, let's finish the rest of the I have a couple more board members I need to get through here. And then we will go to that question. Let's see, let me look on my list here. I believe the mayor is up next. Mayor?
you. I have a question. You have two seepage pits currently there. Normally seepage pits are put in when you are over permeable coverage, or at least that's my understanding. I'm not an engineer or an architect. So I'm curious, why were the two original seepage pits put in if it wasn't that the original building was over? Was it due to some other feature of the property or the slope of the land?
Typically, the seepage pits address any increase in impervious areas.
Yeah.
So there was, when you're saying over, I'm not sure what you're referring to as over, but there was a difference between what was out there. And actually, to be honest, if memory serves me correct, I believe that was a vacant lot at the time. So it was all new impervious. And so to handle that increase in impervious required the two seepage pits to handle the anticipated volume that the borough requires for the design.
But if I'm not mistaken, the original property without the paver improvement was 35 or less. So, and seepage pits are normally put in when you're going over the 35, and there was no permit for the pavers. So I'm still, maybe it's just I don't understand why the seepage, was there a reason for the seepage pits prior to the pavers?
I'd have to go back and review, but typically the practice is that the seepage pits have nothing to do with the zoning criteria. What they have to do with is any change in square footage of impervious. So even if we were coming in at, when it was developed and coming in at a 30% coverage number under the 35%, there would still be a requirement for seepage pits because there was an increase in some capacity of impervious area, which therefore generates additional stormwater runoff.
Okay.
So that capacity would have been calculated based on that anticipated and proposed impervious back in 2014 or whenever it was developed.
All right. Okay, that helps me understand why they're there. I don't understand from the homeowner's explanation how they went 3% over with the pavers. Did the contractor just decide to gift 3% more worth of work? Or was the homeowner aware that the contractor went over? Because in previous testimony, it sounded like the homeowner said that they weren't supposed to go past 35, but somehow the contractor decided to do more. I don't understand how a contractor can afford to bring in more material and provide more labor without charging for it. So I don't understand how the paver system went over the 35. I'd like a better explanation of that if that's possible.
The explanation actually, when they deliver the pavers, they deliver on a pallet. So you purchase the pavers with the pallet. There's so many square footage that comes in a pallet. And we were away when this happened. The contractor was doing the pavers. And what they did is they pretty much just finished everything. When we came back, like, what happened? Well, we just finished all the pavers. So then I realized that eventually we'd had to, remove some of them. And when we made a decision towards the pool, we said, okay, well, let's rectify the situation now. Hence, if nothing happened with the variance, I will automatically, within a couple of months of time, I will rectify that ourselves. And obviously we don't want to be above the allowed coverage and we don't want to be in non-compliance. So, that's what pretty much will happen. The contractor did not know, and they just finished everything that was in a pallet.
Okay. So just two more questions. I noticed that there's a notch in the pavers. that juts out. I'm wondering why there is that notch.
That is a fire pit.
That's a fire pit, okay. And my last question is, the notch goes over where the seepage pits are underneath. Does that affect the functioning of the seepage pits?
It does not, because those seepage pits are installed underground, and what they serve is piping that is from the downspouts of the roof, and it's all underground, so.
You did say that. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Quite all right.
So that's all my questions. I join with the rest of the board in my concern. We don't normally consider, such a large proposed coverage for a standard lot, and this is an oversized lot. So I am also concerned by this number, and I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay, one follow-up question to the mayor's questions. When you put in the paver patio, did you pull a permit?
Yes.
And when they came out to do the final inspection, they didn't notice that it was different than what had been proposed?
When inspection happened, I wasn't home, so I don't know. I think the inspector went around back and look at it. So I'm not sure on that question.
Mr. Behrens, were there permits in the file for the patio?
I believe there were. That's based on my recollection from the initial application of this. I can't attest to any inspections that may or may not have occurred, but I believe there was an application at some point.
Mr. Behrens, could you speak to the building department and to the BA to investigate why it was signed off on?
Okay. I will.
Thank you.
Mr. Merman, you've been waiting patiently.
Yes, and the board's asking very good questions. Mr. Jabuki, I'm going to apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce your name, okay? But at least I'll be consistent. I understand that you testified that your house was purchased in June 1st, 2015.
Correct.
Okay, and that you were the person who installed the patio paver, and that was built 2019. We just went over, correct? Okay. I also have a grave concern, like a lot of the other board members, regarding the amount beyond the allowable 35%. The 48.5 as currently proposed is way beyond my personal threshold. So I'm going to join that group. I do have a question for you, Raymond. Are you the firm that recommended the additional seepage pit? Because when Mr. Pakuki testified, I wasn't quite sure whether he said Coster or Costner.
I believe he was referring to my firm, and I advised him that depending on the outcome of what was approved, that would determine how much of a capacity or volume that would be required by what is currently out there. And so I believe, unless there's another dialogue or discussion that I'm not aware of, so.
Okay, no, that's fine. You correct. You answered my concern. It was your firm that did recommend the additional below grade seepage pit. Okay. Just a quick side note here. There was been some discussion about orientating the pool and the pool interfering with the existing seepage pit. You might want to consider putting the shallow end of the pool at the north end, so you're not as deep in the ground and perhaps less interference or conflict with the existing installation.
Very insightful comment. I appreciate that comment.
Right.
And while I have the opportunity, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it might make a little more sense. from that standpoint. I'm not quite sure what I've heard in the amount of reduction of existing impervious area. The last I heard was a 3% reduction of the total. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I was going to update and say, based on my quick calculations with the comments that have been made now, I think our proposed coverage would be down to around 43%. So
Okay,
that's
approximately.
almost a 5.5% less than what the initial
Okay,
proposal
so
was.
okay, that's very important. So you're approximately 43%. Well, that definitely makes your proposal a lot more palatable. You're aware that the borough engineer will probably want a stability statement on the existing retaining wall for any surcharges of the pool itself.
Yes, I advise the applicant that depending on the outcome of this board's approval, there will be additional discussion with the borough engineer on several items, the drainage and the wall.
Right.
Fortunately, I believe they were the firm and we were the firm for the design of that wall. So we both should have the documentation that would be necessary.
All right. The way I see this application going forward, if the board does agree on a reduction in total impervious to about 43%, I see as part of your building permit submission for the pool would include all the new drainage appurtenances and a new seepage pit and the associated calculations and details for the borough engineer to review. And I would also say that the borough engineer will do his normal inspection of the pit as is installed, and he would he or his office would issue a statement or approval acceptance prior to any certificate of occupancy being issued for the for this pool if we went forward that way. I just want to make sure, my main thrust is to make sure that whatever we agree on has been thoroughly reviewed and installation inspected by the borough engineer. Mr. Chairman, that's my remaining comments. I think the board members touched upon my others, and I'm not going to repeat them. I feel personally a lot more comfortable if this impervious installation does not exceed a total of 43%. And with that, I'll end my comments.
Thanks, Mr. Merman. So my comments are going to keep brief. I see this as an inherited problem that we're going over and over and over again. These builders that are building these homes in town or refurbing these homes are maxing out the coverage, and then they're handing it over to a homeowner and not explaining to them that this is it, you can't do any more unless you go before a board, and now you're coming before us, and we're, our feet are getting held to the fire because certainly Mr. Coopey and Mr. Coopey, we understand the need that you have, the specific need that you have for a pool. And we always try to bend over backwards for our applicants. I've said this many times, we're all neighbors and we want to help each other out. But in the same token, we have laws that we have to follow in town. And when we make exceptions to those laws, they have to be in the borough's best interest. So I think coming next year, I'm going to recommend that the board put together a committee to research how we can stop these builders from maxing out the property without letting the potential buyers know, or either maybe lessen the amount that we let them to build out. So if somebody wants to come in and put a patio, they can put a patio in without without going way over the numbers that are typically allowed either in town or by this board. So that being said, I'm going to ask the board if they have any other questions. Go
I
ahead.
just do have one.
Go ahead, Ryan.
How did we get to the 43? Raymond, what did we eliminate to get to 43?
We were talking the original, what was not previously allowed, and that's 3.75% to comply with what's existing out there before any work is done. And then
Where physically are we taking that from?
I believe what the owners were offering primarily was the northern end of the patio, the 250 roughly plus or minus square feet that was needed to get that down. We're modifying the paver patio in some capacity to comply with that.
So that's their seating area kind of to the right of the.
At this point, that's what they were volunteering.
Mr. Gibbons, could I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
The documentation I have is the present layout is 38.0. You just said 3.5 or 3.7. I don't understand how you're getting that number that you just quoted, Mr. Gibbons, unless I'm reading this wrong. But I have the land use board zoning application, and it says that it's it's also on your documentation on your plans, the large plans, that the existing is 38%. So giving back that, giving back what shouldn't have occurred is not 3.5 or 3.57, is only 3. So as you answer Mr. Gibbons' answer, I want to make sure that we're not padding this, because both documents I have, both the application and your large plan say that the current existing is 38%. So giving back what shouldn't have occurred is not 3.5, but 3.
I'm actually looking, if you look below the bulk table, there's a breakdown of existing impervious coverage calc and proposed impervious coverage calc, which is a more
I see what you're
precise
saying.
calculation.
So you're pulling that number
and
of
based-
38.78.
Correct. So that's actually what the table should reflect.
So you're
I
saying
think-
that the application showing 38% is incorrect. The application should show 38.78. Mr. Barron, could you just chime in on that?
So, yeah, I see the discrepancy on the plan. I think the application is still okay because ultimately the applicant noticed for the maximum relief being sought, which isn't necessarily the existing condition. And I think I could pull up the letter I think the letter of denial may have referenced that the larger figure of 38% and change. I can't.
It did. It referenced the 38.78. So
Right. So
and that's why I interrupted Mr. Gibbons, just because I didn't understand how we went from 33% to 3.78.
No,
I
it's a good,
understand now.
it's a good question. There's definitely a discrepancy, but I think the fact that it was, those issues were captured in the notice appropriately, that the applicant is still safe to
Yeah,
continue.
just to add, the publication and the notice did reference the 48.47%.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm sorry for the interruptions.
Okay, and then where is the other, I guess, 1.5%? Coming
Again,
from?
they were
Are we-
talking at reducing the walk around the proposed pool to capture and another probably about 120 square feet reduction. Currently, it's almost 290 square feet that were proposed based on that configuration. So again, reducing it in the southerly area or whatever area that would benefit the pool design to capture another
Okay,
1.5%.
Raymond, state for the record, what the reduced area of coverage is that you're proposing now is?
So based on the modifications that have been discussed, we would be proposing a max coverage area of 43%.
Okay.
43. Okay.
And
And Mr. Merman, if you were to make a motion on this, you would incorporate the 43%,
I
correct?
would incorporate 43% as a maximum And after listening to the applicant and Raymond, I would imagine it would be up to them to adjust patio pavers, concrete walkway around the pool, and perhaps even the pool size. It's up to them. They've got
Mr. and Mrs.
3 areas that they can make their reductions to meet a max of 43% of the as an improved impervious area.
Being that we're on Zoom and when Raymond can't really confer with his client separately, I want to ask Mr. Jacoupy and Mrs. Jacoupy, are you okay with these revisions that are being discussed?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Okay, so we have that for the record. Just again, Raymond, I
Appreciate that.
I know this is a difficult situation, and hopefully next year we'll be back on the dais where we belong.
I was hoping my client and I had enough of a dialogue, but I think we're all on the same page at this point, so I appreciate that.
Very good. Okay, at this point, I want to entertain a motion open to the public.
So made, Merman.
Do I have a second? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposing, abstain. At this point, we're open to the public. Ms. Kaufman,
Take it in the other room.
There are no public attendees.
and then in that case, I will offer a motion, ask for a motion to close to the public.
So moved. Gibbons?
Do I have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Okay, at this point, we're ready to, I think I'm ready to accept a motion on this application. Anybody?
Should I give it a whirl there, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Merman, you are recognized.
I am recognized. I'll make a motion that the Land Use Board of River Ridge regarding the Chakuki residence at 830 Park Avenue, Block 213, Lot 13.01, grant the variance approval for maximum improved lot coverage for, not maximum, for improved lot coverage for the installation of a in-ground swimming pool. And that the submission for the building permit contain a letter stating that the pool installation will not affect the stability of the existing retaining walls, and that the applicant's engineer submit impervious coverage calculations and disposal scales and calculations to the borough, and that a new seepage pit be installed to receive the excess runoff beyond the maximum permissible 35%. That the maximum improved lot coverage does not exceed 43%. And that the submitted documents regarding site work, pool, drainage, and so forth be reviewed by the borough engineer. And during installation of the seepage pit and the appurtenances for drainage, the borough engineer make an inspection and submit a final report to the building department. And that the building department will not issue a certificate of occupancy for this until the borough engineer has approved the final installation. And I think I got most of it.
Something about trees too, right? That were gonna be installed?
Well, we kind of mentioned it, but we didn't come to a conclusion. What are we looking at? Some landscaping in between the pool and the fence or along the fence line?
Correct.
Okay, so you could put in some landscaping, lower landscaping to absorb some of the surface moisture that's going to be running off down that hill. Is that acceptable to the applicant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I offer that up as a motion to be discussed by the board and amended if necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second, Bartoloni.
Thank you, Mr. Bartoloni. At this point, does the board have any questions while everything is, while we have a motion on the table? We have a second. Would anybody have any comments? Ms. Finley, call the vote, please.
All right. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Bartoloni,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Grasso,
Yes.
Mr. Caslin,
Yes.
Councilman Kenigo,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay,
Congratulations, folks.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
We appreciate
Appreciate it, board.
Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
Really
pool
appreciate it.
Thank you.
and have a happy holiday.
Good
Thank
luck.
Thank you. This is the best holiday, best gift for the holiday for us and our family. Thank you so much.
Have a nice night. Thank you.
Nice evening.
Good night.
Night, Raymond.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so unfortunately, we have several applications for the next meeting. So we are going to have a meeting on, I think it's what, the 17th, 16th maybe.
16.
We've got quite a few in the pipeline, nothing of significance. A few additions, and we have one food license coming in. So we will have one more meeting before the holidays. But I want to thank everybody for tonight and thank you for your patience. And as always, the board has done a wonderful job in helping a neighbor get through what they needed to get through without everybody giving up the ship here. I especially want to thank, as always, Councilwoman Kaufman for being our host and sitting through this. We appreciate all your hard work, and I sincerely say thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Couldn't do us without you. On that note, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
So made,
Gibbons.
Merman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Any abstained? Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Aye.